The galaxy stood on the precipice of a defining moment, a crucial juncture that would ripple through history like a stone cast into a still pond. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, the man who had been groomed by both the Jedi Order and secretly manipulated by Darth Sidious, found himself standing before his greatest test. The revelation of Sidious's true identity as the Sith Lord shook Anakin to his core. A conflict raged within him, a storm of loyalty, betrayal, fear, and hope. But what if, in that moment of devastating clarity, Anakin made a different choice? What if, instead of being consumed by indecision, he acted? What if he killed Palpatine? The scene was tense. Palpatine, seated with the calm of a predator who believed his victory inevitable, had just unveiled his true self. His voice dripped with manipulation, attempting to ensnare Anakin with promises of power, control, and most of all, the knowledge to save Padme. Anakin's thoughts, already clouded by dreams of her death, wrestled with the weight of what had been laid before him. But as Sidious's words continued, something shifted within the young Jedi. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the voice of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and even Qui-Gon Jinn in the depths of his subconscious began to surface. Instead of succumbing to the lure of the Sith, Anakin saw clearly the vile truth of the man who had orchestrated so much death and destruction. With a sudden movement, his lightsaber ignited, the hum of blue light cutting through the darkened office. Sidious's smile faltered for the briefest of moments, replaced by a flicker of surprise, though his expression quickly returned to one of malice. He raised his hands, electricity crackling between his fingers, but Anakin was faster. Driven by a mix of righteous fury and sheer desperation to do what was right, he struck down the Sith Lord. The blade hissed as it cut through flesh and bone, and in a flash, Darth Sidious, the most cunning and powerful Sith in 1,000 years, was no more. The room fell silent, save for Anakin's heavy breathing. The dark side's oppressive grip on Coruscant seemed to ease for a moment, as if the galaxy itself exhaled. Anakin stared at the lifeless form of Palpatine, the man he had once admired and trusted. A man who had positioned himself as a mentor, a confidant, and ultimately, a deceiver. Relief mingled with horror. He had done it. He had stopped the Sith. But what now? The implications of this single act began to unfold almost immediately. Anakin, torn between the weight of his emotions and the clarity of his actions, knew that he had to alert the Jedi Council. There would be questions, so many questions. But Anakin was prepared to face them. For once, he felt as though he was truly in control of his destiny. When Mace Windu, Yoda, and other members of the Council arrived, they found Anakin still standing over Palpatine's body. His lightsaber was deactivated, clipped to his belt, his expression somber but resolved. He was the Sith Lord, Anakin explained, his voice steady. He was Darth Sidious, the one we've been searching for. Mace's gaze flickered between Anakin and the lifeless corpse. His natural distrust of Skywalker was still present, but the evidence before him was undeniable. Windu stepped closer, his face a mask of suspicion tempered with relief. "If this is true, then you may have just saved the galaxy," he admitted cautiously. "But the Council will decide what is to be done next." The repercussions of Palpatine's death spread like wildfire. Coruscant, which had grown accustomed to the Chancellor's omnipresence, was thrown into disarray. The Senate was thrust into chaos as factions vied for control, each grappling with the sudden power vacuum. Without Sidious's careful orchestration, his schemes began to unravel. The Separatists, still under the command of Dooku's subordinates, were left without their Sith Master's guidance. The Clone Wars, while still raging across the galaxy, began to lose direction. The Jedi seized the opportunity to consolidate their position, working swiftly to restore order in the Republic. However, the Jedi Council was not blind to the complexities of the situation. They knew that the death of Sidious was not the end of the Sith. Questions lingered. Was there another apprentice waiting in the shadows? What of Count Dooku? The Council convened in emergency sessions to determine their next steps, and Anakin found himself at the center of it all. His decision to kill Palpatine had placed him in a precarious position. Though he had acted decisively, doubts among the Jedi persisted. Had he acted out of loyalty to the Order, or were his motivations more personal? Did his attachment to Padme, his fear of loss, influence his choice? Yoda, ever the voice of wisdom, urged caution. A momentous decision young Skywalker has made. Clouded, the path ahead remains. Anakin, for his part, did not shrink from the scrutiny. If anything, the act of killing Palpatine seemed to strengthen his resolve. He confessed his fears to the Council, admitting his struggles with attachment and the dark side, but he stopped short of revealing his marriage to Padme. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Anakin spoke of his desire to protect those he loved and his willingness to confront his own darkness. It was a turning point, both for him and the Council. Slowly, the walls of mistrust began to crack. The Jedi Order, under Yoda's leadership, took a more active role in restoring balance to the galaxy. Anakin was tasked with leading a strike force to confront Count Dooku, who remained a significant threat. The confrontation was inevitable, and this time, Anakin approached it with a renewed sense of purpose. On the battlefield, he was unstoppable, a whirlwind of power and precision. When he finally faced Dooku, the duel was fierce, but Anakin emerged victorious, killing the Sith Lord and ensuring that the Separatist movement would crumble. Yet even as the Republic celebrated its victories, the shadows of the dark side lingered. The death of Palpatine and Dooku did not mean the end of the Sith. Anakin, haunted by the knowledge that he was the chosen one, struggled with the weight of his destiny. His relationship with Padme remained a secret, a source of both solace and conflict. Though he had avoided the path to darkness, the temptations of power and the fear of loss still loomed. As the Republic began to rebuild, the Jedi faced a dilemma. Their role in the galaxy had shifted. With the Sith seemingly defeated, their purpose as guardians of peace and justice was called into question. The Order, already weakened by years of war, found itself at a crossroads. Anakin, now a hero in the eyes of the galaxy, became a symbol of hope, but within the Order, debates raged about his place among them. Should he be elevated to the Council, or did his impulsive nature and past struggles with attachment disqualify him? In the midst of this uncertainty, Anakin found an unlikely ally in Obi-Wan. Their bond, strained by the war and Anakin's growing independence, began to mend. Obi-Wan, always the voice of reason, offered guidance and support, recognizing that his former apprentice was grappling with challenges far greater than most could comprehend. Together, they worked to stabilize the Jedi Order, advocating for reforms that would address the flaws that had allowed the Sith to rise in the first place. Padme, too, played a pivotal role in shaping the future of the Republic. With Palpatine gone, she emerged as a leader in the Senate, championing diplomacy and justice. Her relationship with Anakin remained a closely guarded secret, but their love provided a foundation for hope amidst the chaos. They dreamed of a future where their children could grow up in a galaxy free from the shadow of the Sith. But even as peace seemed within reach, the legacy of the Sith could not be erased so easily. Unbeknownst to the Jedi, Darth Sidious had left behind contingencies, hidden plans designed to ensure the survival of his dark vision. Whispers of a new threat began to emerge, a shadowy figure who sought to reclaim the power of the Sith. Anakin, now a seasoned warrior and a symbol of hope, would face his greatest challenge, yet not just as a Jedi, but as the chosen one. The galaxy, while momentarily freed from the tyranny of Darth Sidious, was far from healed. The death of the Sith Lord had created a power vacuum that sent shockwaves through the Republic and beyond. Though Anakin had acted decisively, severing the head of the Sith's machinations, the reverberations of his actions were both profound and unpredictable. The Senate, already a fractured body under Palpatine's subtle manipulations, found itself in a frenzy of political infighting. Without a unifying figure, the cracks in the Republic's foundation widened. Meanwhile, the Jedi Order grappled with its own identity, struggling to reconcile its role in a galaxy on the brink of transformation. Anakin Skywalker, now hailed by many as a hero, became an enigma within the Jedi Order. The Council, though relieved that the Sith Lord was dead, viewed his actions with a mix of admiration and unease. Anakin's willingness to take such a decisive and lethal step, even against a Sith, challenged the Jedi's principles. Killing in self-defense or as an act of war was one thing, but preemptively striking down an unarmed enemy, even one as dangerous as Sidious, created ethical complications. Yet, this was not a moment for the Council to dwell on philosophy. The galaxy needed leadership, and Anakin had positioned himself as a central figure in its future. The Jedi moved quickly to consolidate their gains. With Sidious dead and Count Dooku eliminated by Anakin shortly afterward, the Separatists were leaderless. The droid armies, scattered and disorganized, became easy targets for the Republic's forces. Peace seemed closer than it had in years, but beneath this facade of victory lay an unsettling truth: the dark side's influence was not so easily vanquished. Sidious's death had extinguished a great shadow, but the corruption he had sown throughout the Republic endured. For Anakin, the aftermath of Sidious's death was both liberating and agonizing. He had fulfilled his duty as a Jedi, striking down the Sith Lord who had manipulated events to orchestrate the galaxy's suffering. Yet, his actions were driven not only by a sense of justice but also by fear and anger, emotions the Jedi forbade. He had acted out of a desire to protect Padme, to prevent the nightmares of her death from becoming reality. While he had succeeded in thwarting the Sith, he could not escape the gnawing doubt that he had walked too close to the edge of darkness. Padme, too, felt the weight of Anakin's actions. She was proud of him for doing what was necessary to save the Republic, but she also feared for his soul. Their secret marriage, already a delicate balancing act, became even more precarious. Anakin's growing prominence in the galaxy made it harder to hide their relationship, and the stresses of their situation began to strain their bond. Despite this, they clung to each other, finding solace in their shared dream of a better future. The Jedi Order, under Yoda's guidance, initiated sweeping reforms. They recognized that their detachment from the galaxy's struggles and their rigid adherence to outdated traditions had allowed the Sith to rise unnoticed. The Council debated whether the Order should embrace a more flexible approach, one that acknowledged the complexities of emotions and relationships rather than denying them outright. Anakin became a symbol of this new philosophy, a Jedi who had confronted his fears and attachments but had not succumbed to the dark side. Yet, not all Jedi were comfortable with this shift. Some, like Mace Windu, remained skeptical of Anakin's methods and motivations. Windu, ever pragmatic, argued that Anakin's actions, while effective, set a dangerous precedent. If the Jedi began to justify preemptive violence, even against their enemies, how could they claim to be defenders of peace? This ideological divide created tension within the Order, threatening to fracture it at a time when unity was desperately needed. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, remnants of the Sith's influence persisted. Though Sidious and Dooku were gone, their schemes had left scars on countless worlds. Corruption in the Senate, criminal syndicates empowered by the chaos of war, and warlords rising from the ashes of the Separatists all contributed to an unstable political landscape. The Jedi, already stretched thin, struggled to address these challenges while also attempting to rebuild their own order. Amid this turmoil, whispers began to circulate about a new threat. Strange disturbances in the Force hinted at the presence of another dark power. The Jedi investigated, but the clues were elusive. Anakin, attuned to the Force in ways few could comprehend, felt these disturbances deeply. They called to him, reminding him of the prophecy that had defined his life. He was the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. But what did that mean now? Was the death of Sidious enough, or was there more to his destiny? The answer came in the form of an ancient Sith artifact uncovered on a distant, desolate world. Jedi scholars, poring over the relic, discovered records of Sidious's contingency plans. The Sith Lord, ever the strategist, had prepared for the possibility of his demise. He had hidden the location of Sith holocrons, repositories of dark knowledge, across the galaxy. Worse still, these holocrons contained instructions for creating new Sith Lords, ensuring the survival of the dark side even in his absence. Anakin was tasked with leading a team to locate and destroy these holocrons. The mission took him to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, to forgotten worlds steeped in ancient darkness. The journey tested him in ways he had never anticipated. The holocrons, imbued with the essence of the Sith, whispered to him, preying on his fears and desires. They promised him the power to protect Padme, to ensure that no harm would ever come to those he loved. But Anakin, though tempted, resisted. Each holocron destroyed was a victory not just for the Jedi, but for his own soul. However, the destruction of the holocrons was not enough to erase the threat of the dark side. As Anakin and his team continued their mission, they encountered followers of the Sith who had survived in the shadows. These acolytes, drawn to the holocron's power, sought to resurrect the Sith Order. They were not as powerful as Sidious or Dooku, but their fanatical devotion made them dangerous. Anakin, channeling both his skill as a warrior and his growing wisdom as a Jedi, led the charge against these remnants of darkness. Through these trials, Anakin grew into the Jedi he was always meant to be. The arrogance and impulsiveness that had once defined him gave way to a deeper understanding of the Force and his place within it. He began to see the prophecy of the Chosen One not as a burden, but as a responsibility, a call to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Back on Coruscant, Padme continued her work in the Senate, advocating for reforms that would prevent the concentration of power that had allowed Palpatine to seize control. Her efforts were met with resistance, but her determination and eloquence won her allies. She and Anakin, though separated by their duties, found moments to reconnect, cherishing the time they had together. Their love, though still a secret, became a source of strength for both of them. The Jedi Order, inspired by Anakin's journey, began to embrace change. They trained a new generation of Jedi with a greater emphasis on understanding and empathy, teaching them to confront their emotions rather than suppress them. The Order's renewed focus on balance, both within the individual and the galaxy, marked the beginning of a new era. Yet the story was far from over. Anakin's actions had set the galaxy on a new path, one filled with both hope and uncertainty. The Sith, though weakened, were not entirely gone. The seeds of darkness, once sown, could never be fully eradicated. Anakin knew this, and he accepted it. He understood that balance was not a destination, but a journey, one that he would walk for the rest of his life. As the stars stretched out before him, Anakin Skywalker stood ready to face whatever came next. He had made his choice, and though the road ahead was fraught with challenges, he would walk it with courage, guided by the light of the Force.